Welcome back to another episode of Creating Magic. I'm Dani.
And I'm Paula.
And today we have some lovely guests with us.
We have Naysha and Blanca from Latinxmagia.
Hi. I'm Blanca.
And I am Naysha.
We're so excited to have you both on.
Thank you for having us. We were jonesing to come to the podcast, so we're very excited to be invited.
Well, you're always a welcome back. We haven't even started, and you're already welcome back.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. The edited out pre-show made it worth it.
That's what I was going to say. Was like it's the pre-show that like nobody gets to hear now.
Yeah, it was like better.
Someday we may have to record pre-shows and release them as bonus episodes.
Yes.
Because honestly, they
behind
are
the scenes.
Yeah, some of them are really, This one was really good.
This was fun.
My name is Blanca Gonzalez. On Instagram, I am Gallivanting Gonzalez. And I am originally from Puerto Rico. And together with Naysha, we created Latinxmagia, originally Latinx Disney. And then as we kept growing and growing, we realized that the magic is beyond Disney. So we decided to incorporate all the amazing pop culture and our Latin culture and decided to change it to Latinxmagia. That is me. I could go on and on, but that's like the gist of it.
No, it's just like keep going.
You go ahead. I am the more quiet one, but yeah, my name is Naysha Soto Gonzalez too, by the way. And my ad is from PR to Magic. I also was from PR to Disney, but again, that was actually the Catholics for all. We wanted to make sure that we can include everyone in our page. It was always like our core message in Latinxmagia was that we always wanted to make everyone feel included. And it kind of get that epiphany that we needed to change it from Latinx Disney to Latinxmagia because we wanted to bring, more people over and be more inclusive. So yeah, it was a passion project that started with an empanada. So it's really a fun story how this thing happened. But yeah, and now for us, it's like the biggest thing ever.
We have to share the empanada story. But you finish first. You finish first.
No, but it's true. It just started with an empanada, and now it's a huge community. It's a familia for us. We love the fact that we get to talk beyond the internet and the social media. We also love that we get to talk about deep, strong, topics as well that affect our Latin community. So definitely, it has been a huge passion project for us. So I'm very excited that we're still here, up and running.
And I got to meet you last weekend.
Yeah!
I'm so damn.
We ran into each other at the park.
We're always like in the park when they're not there.
We
were waiting for Death Eaters.
Yes.
And I didn't realize it. I got home and I went, oh my God, it was her.
And then that's the thing. I'm so awkward. I knew that like you didn't recognize me, but instead of like saying it's me, I was like, hi. Like I get so awkward. It's like I just want you to be my friend, but I don't know how to say who I am. Okay, bye.
I will add in, it was also a chaotic moment because everyone was getting pictures. At one point, Diego just handed me all his stuff that apparently was not his stuff. He's like, someone gave me this. I need someone to hold this. I'm taking a photo. So we had some chaotic moments happening.
I think there was one day I think it was the day that we went to Halloween Horror Nights. You, Paula, were in Epcot. And I'm like, what? What is this? You're like never at Disney. And never we're at Universal, but no.
And you're never at Universal, but that day you were at Universal.
We just never there the same time. We had to coordinate this better.
I'm at both.
Same.
Yes.
Same.
I'm experiencing my first Mickey's Not So Scary this year.
Yay!
Okay. Are you excited? What are you most excited for?
A certain movie that I love, and Max's power line is like,
okay, good.
And like when a Goofy movie made its resurgence, everyone's like, oh, you just like Powerline because it's popular right now. And my friend Erin, who I love to death, just went, she's been listening to the soundtrack on every road trip since we were 13. Which is not a lie.
awesome.
It used to be my road trip song that started our whole road trip, so we had to listen.
Exactly. That's the way to go. I
You gotta
actually
go
got
with
into Power. Yeah, I actually got in Powerline because of my daughter. She was 2 years old and she got obsessed with the movie. And she used to watch it 3, 4, 5 times a day. So I had to love Powerline. Like there was no other
I
choice.
agree.
So it was, that's how I got into it. And when she saw it at the last Mickey Not So Scary Halloween, she was so excited. Like it's funny that after so many years, she still, recognizes it and loves it. So yeah, it wasn't my first love from young, but it became
I
through.
still honestly watch it for fun, like once a month.
Oh, that's awesome. What I will say is make sure you find like a good spot to see the parade, because depending on that, you'll see it or you won't. Because like last year it was awesome. He had like a total dance party in different areas. And I feel like this year they like cut it down a little bit, or maybe I went in like an off night. But I was the last year and this year I got like the edge corner before they end the parade. And this year he even cut that part, like cut the part right in front of the train and went straight to the back. So do not stand by the train entrance. Like Mickey's Not So Scary is a great time, but it's just like there's so much to do with such little time. You have to definitely pick what you want to do.
Yeah.
So like that's why I asked like what's most important for you, because like make sure you go do that. Because if not, like I recommend trick-or-treating is the best thing. You will get your money's worth in candy.
I went trick-or-treating on the cruise ship last week.
Oh,
Yes.
Nice. Yes, you get more candy in Mickey's Not So Scary Halloween, though. So be prepared.
Be prepared.
Be prepared.
Is it good candy? Is it good candy?
It's good candy.
Yeah,
It's good candy.
It's fancy.
It is. So you only get the full size candy if you go in like before the time. Danny and I got a little bit late. We went a little bit later because it had been storming, and we didn't get a full size candy, but it was okay. The stops made up for it.
What do we get to celebrate for the entire month?
Yeah.
Woo! Get to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, and we are so excited. This is like when Latinxmagia goes all the way out. And we have actually, thank you for mentioning, because we actually have a challenge called Mi Gente Latinx. And it's where we celebrate not only our identities, because that's something that we like to talk a lot about, is the fact that, yeah, we are Latin, but we are so much more. We are also so different, even in our own community. So one of the things that we like to celebrate the most is our identity. We like to celebrate like our accomplishments. We like to celebrate our history. And we also like to celebrate the creativity of our familia, and that's every week of this month from September 15th to October 15th. We celebrate Latinxmagia, Mi Gente Latinx. And if you want to see more about it, make sure to tune in on our page, because we are so happy for this month. We celebrate Latin people all year long, but this is the day we get the focus. So we go all out.
Yeah, that's what we always say, is like we celebrate 365, but during this month in particular, our eyes are on us. So we have to definitely take advantage of that. We're not here obviously to like educate, but we are, because this is the month that we have to shine. So we're going to shine. And this would be the third time we do this. Well, it's 3 years of Latinxmagia. So this is the third time we do this Mi Gente Latinx to celebrate Latin American History Month. And we celebrate the first week we did oh my gosh, my brain just blanked. We did identity, which is celebrating the thing that make the things that make us celebrate our culture. So it was our music, our food, our flag, our traditions, our family, which are some key elements of being Latin American. And then this week we are celebrating Voces Latinas, which is where we're celebrating like key people that have made a difference in our community. Today we celebrated musicians and artists and singers, and we highlighted Shakira because she has a foundation. Tomorrow we'll be celebrating actors. On Wednesday it's poets and authors. On Thursday is activists, and on Friday is a little bit of everything of our community.
We're going to actually release this Thursday. So for those that didn't know, you can join along now and then catch up next week at the start of a fresh week.
Yes.
Yay!
It's amazing. Next week, we've asked a few people from the community to tell us what being Latin means to them. So we're going to share their stories. But everyone's favorite week is going to be the last week where we do all the bounding and the outfits. Everybody goes out for that. Everybody goes wild for that. So we are doing obviously a Coco Day, an Encanto Day. We're doing a Wish Day. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah.
Naysha?
Wish Day is my passion. It's this day for me is so important because we always said that we want to be represented in media and in different areas, but we don't want to be stereotyped. And everybody has in their mind what will be like their favorite princess or how their Latin wizard will be or how their Latin princess will be. So we wanted our community to create their own character. If you want to see your own character, how would it look like? How would it look like a character that represents you? So we want everybody to come up with their own character and with their sidekick as well. So a whole story. And we have a special features of creators who are going to create our Latin wizard, our Latin Disney character. And it's really exciting to me because I just want to see how we see ourselves, because sometimes we do get representation, but it is very stereotyped at times. Mm-hmm. So I just want to see the excitement of seeing someone that you really do see yourself in. So yeah, that's I Wish Day, and I'm really excited about that day for sure.
Yeah.
I really love that, like to the point where I'm like, hey, can we borrow that next year for our September challenge?
Yes, for sure.
100%.
We have so many people, like not just of Latin heritage, but of all heritages. I'm like, that would be really fun.
Yeah, I think it's so important. Like we are very much advocates and of letting everybody know how much we want representation and demanding representation. And we're firm believers of like saying thank you, but you could do more. Yeah. Because I think one of the things that might turn off companies is like, well, I already gave this to you. And it was like, yeah, you did, but you could do better. So it's like saying thank you for this, but like this is what you could do next time to do better. And then there are still some communities, for example, the very big one is the wizarding world where Latin characters are not represented at all. So I think it's amazing, Paula, like when you guys go to the cons and you have like a special gathering, it's so important to have those moments because I so many of us have been wanting to be represented, and so many things that are happening at the parks now are so iconic. Like for me, Harmonious was so an emotional experience. Everybody hated it because of the barges, and it made me so upset because I know, like I loved it, but it's just like the way people spoke about it. Obviously, the people that spoke about it weren't like have never experienced not being represented, so when it was us and like we saw Coco and then like Luis Fonsi started singing in Spanish and you're just like, is this really happening? Like, is this Spanish here at one of my favorite parks? And I'm so like worried about the new show. And I'm like, I hope they keep that because it's a true way of representing all of us. And everyone's like, oh no, the best thing was Illuminations. Like, no, it wasn't. Maybe for you.
Harmonious was beautiful.
It was stunning. Yeah. And it's not just the Latin culture, but like all cultures of it. And languages.
The way they incorporated with music with language.
Yep.
I was floored. Like,
yes.
It was beautiful. So it's just little things like that. Like even now with Mirabel at Magic Kingdom, like I was there the day it opened because I was like, I need to see my girl. I need to like see her, and it's what Naysha was saying. It's like sometimes they do stereotype the characters, and I feel before like Miguel from Coco and like Mirabel and all the Encanto characters, everything was a little bit more stereotyped. Like. Mm-hmm. I'm sorry. I'm not a stan of Elena of Avalor. I'm sorry. I'm happy that she exists, but she's not my favorite. I'm sorry. Please don't cancel this.
I think that when Moana started, they started learning that they need to really do their research.
100%.
And I think was Moana before or after Coco? They were very close.
I think it was after.
After.
Then it was
After.
Coco.
Yeah, I think it was
Whichever
after. It
one
was Coco.
started it, they really learned. And I'm just gonna say, my guy Lin-Manuel Miranda was working on both of those.
Yeah.
And we know how he feels about representation. So
Yeah.
he also
We-
worked on
we-
The Little Mermaid.
Mhm. He
we
did.
we are very excited that they are turning into more people that have the experience. We had the amazing opportunity to talk with one of the producers of right, and she's Puerto Rican, and she talked to us about how they started to do basically like round tables where they will ask them about their
Culture.
experiences and their culture, and it was a real deep dive on cultural, what's not. So it was really interesting to see that they are actually making the effort to deep dive in cultural stuff. And I just think it's amazing. We're getting Wish, right? We're getting the movie Wish soon, which is also going to have a Latin, right? A Latin and
Mhm.
Afro-Latino
Yeah, it is
character.
Afro-Latino.
So we are very excited about that, and we're looking forward to see that as well. And I think they're dipping their toes into representation in all matters, not only cultural, but also, other types of representation. So I'm really excited about to see how this is going. But one of the reasons why we did Latinxmagia is because the pressure needs to be there for them to continue to do so. And that's
Yeah.
why we want to inspire not only our Latin community, but other communities to also open themselves to creative spaces like this, so we can continue to create pressure to, for representation to happen. Because I feel like if there's no pressure, there's no action. So that's why with Latinxmagia, not only for a Latin community, but also for other communities, we want to like inspire to get that done. So yeah, it's exciting. It really is.
Yeah, I think pressure for sure. We got to tell them thank you, but do better. But it's also like celebrating them as well. Celebrating the good. We as Latin people are very critical of things, and we feel very I know what we feel
What?
very attached to what is ours, and we want to very much be vocal as to when things are wrong. So I think there's nothing wrong with saying this is wrong, but there's also a time to celebrate. And on a happy note, it's like we're so happy for the representation. On a more heavier note, I would say, our community is also very critical of one another, because I think, okay, the big thing is we're all Latin, but Latin America is not one country. It's half of a continent of America. We're all America here, but it's also a bunch of different countries into one category, meaning there's a lot of different cultures, there's a lot of different beliefs, but we're all under one umbrella. So yes, do we share a core values? Most definitely. Do we share a language? Most definitely. But there are traditions that we don't share with one another. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, not everybody is nice to one another in Latin America. And, it's not like a picture perfect scenario where like kumbaya, we're singing songs all around as much as we want to. But it's the reality, so it's finding a way to come together. And we have been trying to do that. We have been doing that in Latinxmagia since day one. We are not doing this generational trauma stuff. We are not avoiding topics that are taboo. We are talking about topics that everyone's like, in Spanish, no digas eso, porque, ¿qué va a decir la gente? Like, don't say that. What are people going to say? No. We're having these conversations. And that's been a strong thing between Naysha and I, that we both share the values of being open and accepting everyone, and being open to having conversations that others may not be so open about. And that, I think, we've been very lucky to have an audience that is very accepting of it and are very welcoming and are very open about it. But it's not the case in all of Latin America. And we've seen it with simple things as Disney has changed the name of the Latin American Heritage Month multiple times within the past 3 years. First, it was Hispanic Heritage Month, then they did Latinx Heritage Month, and now they're doing Hispanic and Latin American Heritage Month. And it's little things of, hey, they're celebrating us, that's great. We could still tell them, hey, we don't really like that or whatever. But when you're focusing on just why are you calling us this? Why are you calling it us that? It's just separating us rather than bringing us together.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like for us, our name has like changed a little bit. And at first we felt very represented by Latinx, and we've done a little bit more research, and we feel very much represented by Latine. A lot of our community feels represented by Latino, Latina. And we're always so open about just call yourself what you want. Call yourself whatever you want. We are this is our name. And a lot of our name is Latinxmagia, but it's not just the X for Latinx. It's more of like Latin with magia kind of thing.
It's like the Collab X.
Exactly. But it also ties into Latinx because for a while we did feel represented by that. And to an extent, I still do. You know, I just want a word that represents all of us, but it's we can spend a whole hour on this, which I'm trying to cut it short.
For LeakyCon, because Paula changed the name of the LeakyCon panel. Because
I was originally submitted for it the first time. I had submitted as I had the word Latinx in it, and they were like, well, they're like really careful about making sure that they're like really like including everybody. So they're like, you know, we don't want to like make people feel like because you're saying Latinx that if they, you know, identify as Hispanic or Latine or Latino, Latina, that they're not included. So, you know, like try to find, so then we called it Bienvenidos a la Magia. Bueno, Bienvenidos a Hogwarts was the first one. And then since they were trying to incorporate other fans, because they are really trying to stray away from JKR, which I 100% understand. So we changed it to Bienvenidos a la Magia. So that's how.
But that's a great one. That's a great name. It's welcoming to all, 100%.
And
I think it's important.
I've been a fly on the wall of that for the last 2 years. And the amount of heritage and country just represented in that small little group is amazing.
Yeah. We had like a lot. There's always like so many different like countries and like just the way that people do things. Like the first one to me is still like, I guess because it was the first one, it still holds like such a special place in my heart that after, pause. After I'll tell you about this story.
This is after hours podcast information.
But I think Dani knows what it is. She probably does. Vix. You were there for the Vix.
God. No, we need this after hours too. I need to know this.
Yes. Sorry, guys, you can't know this, but we will.
For the Patreon, we don't have.
But it was just such a good. It was such a good conversation about like how, in this instance, we were talking specifically about Harry Potter and like what their parents thought and like, you know, if they were allowed to read it, if they weren't allowed to read it. Oh, it's witchcraft. It's like all this stuff. And like, even though we were from different places, we had like things that were different, but still things that were the same. I just love that. But just that whole conversation, I mean, obviously I cried, but when don't I cry?
We're all criers. That's fine.
The first one also had this moment where we watched local people who had not met each other become friends, and Paula and I lost it.
Yeah.
Because they just happened to come to this thing they saw would be fun in their area, and they found their people there.
Yeah.
Yes. We get that. We get that very often. I think that's one of our biggest things. That's what we cry the most. I'm not a crier. Blanca's the crier, but I cry when 100%. That happens. And it is because that, like, I think the friendships, the collaborations that we have seen grown from Latinxmagia was so like humbling for us, because we were like, we realized we have had this orbit this whole time. We have never met each other. And this little group make us get together and we see ourselves, we see each other. And I think that's the most rewarding thing of all, just being able to have this really deep connections with people that we pass all the time. We walk by them all the time. And it was this little group what makes us realize that, yeah, we're familiar. We're together forever. So that's really cool.
Yes. I think it's 100%. It's the coming together of people. And from the very start, we just kept hearing stories of people just not feeling accepted by the community as well, or of like the title of being Latina, Latino, Latinx, Latine. They felt less than. They didn't feel like they could be. It was like, oh, my skin is too light and people say I'm not Latin, or my skin is too dark and these people say I'm not Latin. I can't speak Spanish, so I'm not Latin. Oh, I'm from Haiti, so I'm not Latin. I'm from this place, I'm not Latin. And it's like, no, you are. Like there shouldn't be any, like, it's so frustrating because we are fighting against people who are like genuinely discriminating against and genuinely like oppressing us. And instead of like coming together and being like, hey, let's join forces, stop fighting against each other. Just stop it. Be kind to one another. I'm not going to cry.
Like that within the Latin community, there's also like colorism, right? Like
100%.
Ansel's Dominican. And that is like, it becomes a topic, and it's like, but you're all Dominican. You realize that, right? Like, because there's like a lot of, but even for like in South America, there's like a little bit of, I'm from Argentina. My parents are from Uruguay. There's also like this.
You could say it. Like, you could say it.
that you're not, you're not Latin enough because you're dark, or
it's in Argentina, full on racism. Let's call it by its name. It's racism within our own community, 100%. Unfortunately.
And it's sad because it's coming, like the call's coming from inside the house.
Exactly.
And it's like, come on, why are you like this? Like, and I think I've had this conversation with Karina before. I was raised in Miami, right? So in Miami, I never felt oppressed, we'll say. I never felt like a minority, because 70%.
70? Let's make it 90. Let's be real.
Is, like Cuban, it's like very like Venezuela. You have like a very, so you don't feel like, but then you go somewhere else, like here, and you're like, even here, it's still like, there's like a lot of Latin people, but it's not as robust, we'll say.
I grew up in Miami too. I left Puerto Rico when I was 5 and I moved to Miami. So we know Miami very well. And I think, oh my God, I don't want to sound like a Debbie Downer. Being Latin is amazing, guys. But the thing is, I think in Miami, we are so, like, everywhere you go, people speak Spanish. Like the norm, like if you are an outsider coming in, you don't speak Spanish, you're in the wrong. Exactly. Like they're going to speak Spanish to you. And if you don't get it, that's on you 100%, But the same thing, like you said, Paula, I went to Tallahassee for school and like people would be like, oh, you're Puerto Rican. What part of Mexico is that in? And I'm like, they weren't kidding though. It wasn't a joke. And it's simple things of like, I don't care that you think that I'm Mexican. Like, I'm not insulted by you thinking that I'm Mexican. I'm insulted by the fact that you're an idiot. Plain and simple. Like it's not idiot. It's not idiot. Maybe that's not the right word. You are an idiot. That's really what it is.
About basic geography.
I think. Yeah.
Yes. There's a word I'm thinking of, but idiot's the only one that's coming out.
I think ignorance is kind of celebrated. Ignorance. I feel like ignorance is celebrated in this country. It's often like we're in 2023. People who don't know that I don't need a passport from Puerto Rico at this time. Like we're Puerto Rican, we're naturalized, we're born with citizenship. We don't need. We have this leg up, and that's another thing that also has a situation between our Latin countries because. Yes, we are Latin, but we are born with citizenship, and not all of our Latin brothers and sisters have that benefit. You know what I mean? So it gives us that, separation. And I think the separation, and we have talked to this about it, Blanca and me, our separation between our cultures and the fact that we cannot get along is because colonization mostly, and the fact that we always are with the breadcrumb mentality. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know when the next opportunity is going to come. I don't know when this thing is going to happen for me. So we got to fight for it. You know what I mean? There's no that camaraderie because we always feel like we have the breadcrumb mentality. So we don't know where our next opportunity is going to come. So it has to be mine. I don't care about you. It has to be mine. You understand what I'm saying? So that has happened for us for generations. And it is very hard to get off that mentality. And that's what we want to do with pages like this, to realize that we don't have to be okay with the breadcrumbs. You know, we can make our own way in life. We can fight for it. We can get there if we get together. So this is pretty much, I feel like that's one of the main reasons why we have this predicament in between our cultures. We hope that with conversations like this, with places like this, we're going to open those eyes. It will take years. I do see the progress. I feel I am a hopeless optimist. You know what I mean? Like, I really hope that this will change eventually. But yeah, I feel we're seeing the glimpse for it. We're seeing the glimpse of it for sure.
Look, I used your the other day, the Dia de los Muertos post, to explain it to London. Because, of course, as a kid, you see these beautiful, like the sugar skulls and all this stuff, and you want to buy it. And I'm like, London, listen, this is what this is. It's not like a decoration. It's not like, we don't celebrate Dia de los Muertos. Other, yes, in Argentina and Uruguay and Venezuela and all that, they do, but we didn't, right? So, and I explained to her, if one day you want to do it, that's fine, but we have to do it the right way. We cannot buy stuff like this. And I had to explain it to her. It's very hard to explain something like this to an 8-year-old. Because she still didn't get it. She was like, but they're selling it like as a decoration. And it's like, they're in the wrong.
No, 100%. Dia de los Muertos is a subject that we've had many conversations with. And even with that post, I had a really good conversation with Margarita, Critter Country Honey. She's amazing. There's a difference between having arguments with someone over something and having actual meaningful conversations. And every time her and I like have discussions, like they're just meaningful. Like, I'm trying to learn from her, she's trying to learn from me, and it's just a really nice conversation. And we had the topic of Dia de los Muertos has been commercialized in many ways, and it's been appropriated. That's like, there's people say it's appreciation versus appropriation, and it's 100% being appropriated in this case. Dia de los Muertos is not Mexican Halloween. Please don't dress up as Dia de los Muertos for Halloween. That is not what it is. I will be very honest and very candid. And Dia de los Muertos was not something that in Puerto Rico is celebrated much. It has gotten a little bit more of like El Dia de los Santos. Like, my family does go to the cemetery to visit our loved ones that day, but it's not something like that we have on our altar and all that stuff. So again, even within our Latin culture, we don't know what it is unless you're living it, unless you truly celebrate it. So it's stuff that like we see it at Universal Halloween Horror Nights, and there's a Dia de los Muertos booth, and you're like, oh, that's so pretty, but it should not be there, you know. And it's stuff that we're like, you're kind of like torn, because you're like, how do we, like, this is beautiful, should we acknowledge it, or what do we do? And it's stuff that you don't know. I don't even know how to say it. Like, there are certain things, we do have urban legends that can be Halloweeny, like La Llorona and stuff like that. Yeah. But when it comes to Dia de los Muertos, the second that you add it to Halloween Horror Nights, the second that you put Ernesto de la Cruz in Oogie Boogie Bash, it opens the door for people to interpret it in whatever way they want to interpret it, you know? So yes, you have Ernesto de la Cruz dressed up in mariachi, does not mean that you dressing up as mariachi is appropriate for Halloween, you know? Right. So it's so hard when you see you want to see the representation. You're so excited to see the representation, but then you're like, but this is opening the door to bigger problems. And that was my conversation with Margarita, is like, hey, I thought maybe this is a possibility. And she was expressing her emotions. And I was like, oh, like, that's true. Like, opening the door a little bit is going to like open up the floodgates to like all of the appropriation.
It's
I think it's one of the experience we get when we talk a lot with the people on our page is the assimilation issue. When we come from, like, we were raised in another country, or we come from another country, or we have a whole entire family who are from another country, and we come to the States, we keep this pressure of assimilation, like trying to, not being bullied or not being looked different, or we're trying to just, assimilate, be part of it. And I feel like all of us teenagers, if we were raised here, I was, and I actually moved in when I was on my 20 somethings with the military. So my assimilation was completely different. But but it became this like ants kind of thing. Plus, like, I want to be part of the team, but my culture is completely the opposite of this. So yeah, they all go through that, and then it comes adulthood and they all want to recover it, because that happens a lot.
And that's what I'm hoping, because his mom's really pushing for him to still know that side, and he is bilingual, and then
they will cherish it the most when they grow up. I think never give up, even if it doesn't seem like you appreciate now. I promise you, they will appreciate the memories of it and knowing about it, and they will cherish it more when they are adults. So yeah, don't stop, no matter what it feels like. Don't stop, for sure.
My mom will not let it.
I think what Naysha was saying is so true, the whole assimilation. I think a lot of people, it depends on like what generation you are when you come here to the States. Like, so I came when I was 5. My parents were here, but I saw my parents to this day, like, they know English, they can speak English, but they prefer to speak Spanish. So like, I do appreciate that, because like my nephews understand Spanish, but the same thing, like, one is a little bit more Puerto Rican than the other, although like one totally wishes he had all the rhythm, and I love him so much and he's so amazing, but like one just naturally dance and the other one's like, oh, and I'm like, oh, you are your father's son, but you are okay. But I think it's just a lot of people. I was lucky that my parents continued with the Spanish no matter what happened. Like, I definitely remember many times where they were discriminated against at like IHOP, where they couldn't order, and then the waitress was just like so rude. I'm like, what the heck? But it's stuff that you experience. And then for me, I would put myself in the situation where like, let me speak for them, let me, but I was a child, but I still didn't want them to feel. And this is where I'm going to start crying. I'm not going to let it happen. It's not going to happen. But it's one of those things where you feel it doesn't matter how old you are. I was a child, and I just remember sitting in that table and being so angry that this lady is treating my parents inappropriately just because they don't speak the language perfectly. And you're just like, no. What she means is this. And it shouldn't have that
responsibility.
Like, but it's not even like a me thing. It's like, you should understand that like people speak English in different formats. Like, just be kind. The biggest thing, and my biggest lesson that I always tell people is be kind. Just be kind to people. Like, that's plain and simple. But there are many cases where families did come to the United States and they didn't want their kids to learn Spanish or speak Spanish, because they wanted them to assimilate, to be able to do better in the United States, to be better in the United States. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, like, it's for whoever lived it to decide. But it is something that happens so commonly, of like, just disassociate yourself from being Latin just to be able to assimilate to the world that we live in, the culture. Exactly. Depending also on the years that you came to the United States. Luckily, we feel that although the world is a mess right now, and our United States are not so united, we still have a very open-minded group of people around all the states, pretty much. So I think we're open, but I don't know. The last few years have been
tough. A
little tough.
I came into the States at 23. I joined the military. I'd never been out of Puerto Rico in my life. Wow. I go from 110-degree weather to below like, 23 degree in Chicago, snowing. I barely knew how to, like, I knew how to speak English because in Puerto Rico, mostly you get the gist of the English, not great. You have a huge, incredible accent. Um, and I remember that my first year was looking sideways and looking at what everybody was doing. And I just repeated because I couldn't understand because people speak so quick or whatever. And then I remember training and with my heavy accent, I was an air traffic controller, which is great because not only I have to learn English, I have to learn air traffic controller language English. So it's completely different. So I had this huge accent and I remember we had to do simulators and the computer doesn't understand nothing that I said, right? Because of this accent. My instructor used to throw me with like this plastic strips and hit my back of my head and says like, that the computers don't speak Mexican because they wouldn't even say Spanish, they don't speak Mexican. And throughout my entire military career, I had moments like this where like, oh, on Saturday are you gonna mow the lawn? All you Latin people that's all that you do, or are you gonna cook your Mexican food? Again, nothing against Mexicans. I'm just not Mexican, you know what I mean? So it was like, and I went through all of that. And for a while I tried really hard to just, let go of that accent or not bring my food to work, because my food, you open that bowl and the entire like 3 miles of the
But it's amazing
base.
flavor that they don't understand.
Yeah. 3 miles of the base will smell like sofrito, like I will be afraid of it. So and I do remember the like that desire to assimilate the bullying will stop. And I feel a lot of kids go through that a lot. And I was an adult, like I'm telling you, I'm 23 years old and I still felt trapped into trying to assimilate myself. So yeah, we all go through that. And I think it's good that we find people all over now, that we have the accessibility to find people like us so we don't feel like we have to assimilate, you know what I mean, anymore. But it took me a couple of years to get to that point as well. Like I'm 37 now, so but it took me a while to get to that point, especially probably getting out of the military. It took me to get there. But yeah. But it all started with an empanada, right, Blanca?
I know. We had to share that story, but before, just to add real quick to what Naysha was saying, it's I think that's such a beautiful thing that we have with Latinxmagia is the fact that no matter who you are welcome, and that we've been able to create a space where people that hadn't felt represented before in pop culture, etc., found other people like them, like you mentioned, Paula, earlier too. And it's just so important to see yourself. Representation matters. And it's just so it's our mission to be able to spotlight, because we see Disney posting and we see the same people and we see the same content, and it's like that's not me, that doesn't represent me. So it's so great to have a place where you could see people experience things the way that we do. And we did a live the other day and we were joking about it, but it's like, I want people to talk about like Food and Wine Festival with the palette that we have, the palette that we have. Like, don't say it's spicy when it's sofrito, like kind of thing, So it's I know. I'm not trying to be mean, but it's the reality. Like it's so frustrating when you see these people like reviewing things and they're like, in Mexico it's like, oh, it's okay. Well, now Mexico's bad as heck, but they do have spicy food sometimes. But like there's certain things that like they're like, oh, that was too spicy for me. And I'm like, arroz con gandule. Like, how could that be spicy? That's not spicy. It's just sofrito y sazon.
It's spices.
So,
difference.
It's spicy.
That's the situation on Friday night.
That's not spicy.
My God. Spices. But so everything did start with an empanada, because I think it was Mardi Gras, right? At Universal. I think, it was. And my husband and I were at Mardi Gras, and we went to the Puerto Rico booth, which was right next to the Cuba booth. And the Puerto Rico booth had an empanada, but it was called empanada de picadillo. Picadillo is a word that Puerto Ricans do not use. Picadillo is a word that Cuban people use. in Cuba, they had a flan, which yes, Cuban people do flans, but so do Puerto Ricans. Like all they had to do was put the flan in Puerto Rico, put the empanada picadillo in Cuba, and it would have been fine. But I remember posting it like, what is this? We don't call picadillo, right?
You do.
And
What
I
do you
remember
carne molida?
it's
Carne
carne molida,
molida.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then there's also like this whole argument of like empanadilla. What's the other one? Panadilla. So empanada, like the picadillo is 100% not what we would call it at all. So it was that whole moment of frustration that I posted it. I was like, it's something so simple. Like there's so many Puerto Ricans in Orlando. Like nobody could have said this is not okay. So then Naysha and I had this conversation, and literally in seconds we're like, we need to create a space to highlight Latin people and our cultures. And literally in less than a week, we're like, in 2 days, we're like, okay, we're gonna announce it. 5 de Mayo 2021 was when it launched, right? And that was it. That was the end of it.
But you guys,
it started with an empanada.
Sure.
We knew each other through social media. We had never met before.
Oh, I love that.
Do you now
We didn't meet
have
till
empanadas every year to celebrate?
We try to.
We did. We're doing different traditions. We do the Latinx meetup now. But it was funny. We started the project. We went full blown, but we didn't meet each other either until like almost 4 months later. We have never met in person. We did all of this.
You guys don't live that far from each other, right?
No,
so I live in Delray Beach. Well, I live in Delray Beach, and Naysha lives up in Jacksonville. But actually, when we started, not Jacksonville, Georgia, but like right borderline of Jacksonville. But you lived in South Carolina when we first started.
Yeah, it was way further. Now we live a little bit closer, but but I was 6 hours away when we started this thing, and it literally in 2 days.
That's a little more acceptable. In my head, you guys were both like popping at the park every weekend and still haven't met each other.
No, we would have not let that happen. But now we're family. Like now we're inseparable. So that's the way it will be forever. This has created a bond that is just so important to us that it's a community that means so much, and we have met so many wonderful people. It's just something that I hope is with us for always, because it's a space that when we both talked about it, it wasn't a space. I don't like, people create Instagrams for many reasons, and for us, it wasn't necessarily for us, although we wanted it. It was for the community. It was a place to be able to highlight the community and the talented people. And we've seen so many people grow and now be found within other communities. And it's just so incredible to finally shed a spotlight into many Latin creators.
As a pro-community podcast, we're all about community. And we mentioned it before we started, but y'all are always welcome back on. And if you have stuff going on, just let us know. Even if you're not coming on, we will share your stuff. We want people to know where to find you.
Thank you.
We really appreciate the support. And it's important not only to have the support of our community, but also have the support of allies. It's very important to spread the voice and to have not only community, but also allies in this. And it means the world to us that you guys have given us the space to rant about our community the most. And we love you. We love what you guys are doing. It is important. Community, not just social media, but community is what matters the most. And, places like this, it's very inspiring. And I love it.
I'm going to come to one of your meetups.
Yes.
That's something we have to work on. We did one earlier this year. And hopefully we get to do one before the year ends as well, because it would be great to meet up. And we would, we've been doing them at Disney parks, but we would love to do one, even if it's just like Disney Springs, maybe Universal, but like we would like to do one at Disney Springs, just so people that don't have passes or can
y'all just mentioned a movie coming out. It's the perfect.
I know. As long as the writers and the actors are being paid appropriately.
Yes. As long as
then yes.
Writers, as of today, they do have an
agreement,
negotiation going to the table. So
Yes.
we're getting closer. We
Yeah.
have personally for the podcast, we have held off on like really talking about any current projects, works, which is really hard because I'm a nerd and there's things I want to talk about. But we're trying to, we want to show our support of the writers and the actors.
Definitely.
100%. It's been very tough, especially with a movie coming out that has Afro-Latino identity and culture within it. I think that there's been noise about it, but there hasn't been much noise, obviously, for all the right reasons. So I'm really hoping the strike comes to an end soon, and that it's not for that the writers and the actors get exactly what they deserve. They are much deserved, like they deserve that and more. So we could get to talking about it because this movie is going to be another important one, and right now we're going to stay quiet about it.
Yes.
So thank you so much for having us. It's been amazing.
No, we've loved having you guys. Can you share where to find you guys again, and so that people can also participate in all that you have going on for the month?
Yes, of course. You can find us at Latinxmagia. This month for Hispanic Heritage Month, we have Mi Gente Latinx for challenge. We hope that you celebrate our culture with us, and we love you very much.
Yes. And Naysha is from PR to Magic, right? It's Magic. Yes. I was like, is it Maya? I want to say Maya, but it's Magic.
Magic.
Yes. And I am Gallivanting Gonzalez. And Magia is Magia for anybody that doesn't know. It's like Latinx magic, but instead of the C, it's an A.
You got it.
And Paula, where can we find you?
You can find me at Unconceivable. You can find me on Instagram, on TikTok, on Twitch. I'm also co-host of this lovely podcast. You can find me at Creating Magic Podcast on Instagram as well.
Yeah, you now have access.
Yes, I have access now.
She has passwords now.
Ooh, we got official.
And then you can find me at Mandrakes and Mischief and Creating Magic Podcast on all the other things. And then we're about to finish our Back to Hogwarts challenge. In just a few more days, we're done. So thank you everyone for joining in on that.
And then
wild month. Wild month. But
it's so good. It's so good. There have been so many participation, and the creativity is always so fun to see. Challenges are the great opportunity to connect with your community. So definitely excited about this one.
Until next time, keep creating.
Now, if you two don't mind, I'm going to bed before either of you come up with another clever idea to get us killed, or worse, expelled.